Tamia Johnson was once the most loved book writer in town. Everyone knew her stories, and her name was on TV, newspapers, and even on posters in bookshops. She was a smart and gifted woman, with a big smile and a heart full of ideas. But one day, something bad happened, so painful that it broke her spirit. Since then, Tamia hasn't been the same. For months now, she has been stuck on one page of a book she started, just staring at her laptop every single day, not writing a single word. The bright fire inside her had gone dim. No matter how hard she tried, the words refused to come, and this made her feel very sad and tired. Each morning, she would promise to try again, but by nightfall, she'd be sitting in the same spot, her eyes full of tears. People started forgetting her name, her smile faded, and slowly, Tamia was slipping into a lonely, quiet world, one where stories no longer lived. Tamia was married to Duke Johnson, a handsome man who worked as a big manager at a company called Lavish Groups. Everyone thought they were the perfect couple, and about a year ago, they were going to have their first baby. Tamia was so happy. She had already started writing sweet poems for the baby and even bought tiny clothes. But something wasn't right with the pregnancy. Tamia began feeling sharp pains and getting weak. She tried to tell Duke, but he was always too busy, spending more time with his pretty secretary than with his own wife. One terrible day, while Duke was out having fun with that woman, Tamia's pain got worse. She called him again and again, but he didn't answer. Luckily, their kind neighbor saw her and rushed her to the hospital. That was the day Tamia lost her baby. When Tamia woke up, she was alone in a cold hospital room, her arms empty and her heart crushed. The nurse told her the baby was gone. She blinked, confused, then started to cry, not just from the pain in her body, but the deep sadness in her soul. She tried calling Duke again, hoping he'd walk through the door, hug her, and tell her everything would be okay. But he didn't come. He didn't call. He didn't even know what had happened. Tamia sat there on that hospital bed, hugging her knees, her eyes filled with tears, and her heart too heavy to beat the same again. Hours later, when Duke finally showed up, all excited like nothing had happened, he found her sitting quietly, not saying a word, just staring into space like a part of her had died. From that day, Tamia was never the same again. After the sad day in the hospital, Tamia and Duke's marriage changed. Tamia found it hard to smile at him, hard to forgive him. The pain in her heart was too deep, and she could not forget that he wasn't there when she needed him the most. Things got worse when she found out the full truth, that Duke was cheating with his secretary while she was fighting for her life. Her heart broke all over again. They fought a lot, and there were days when Tamia packed her bags to leave. They almost divorced. But Duke wasn't ready to lose her. He cried, begged, and promised to change. He told Tamia he would do anything to fix their marriage. After a long talk, she agreed to give him one last chance, but only if he proved that he truly wanted to be a better man. Duke kept his promise. He applied for a transfer to a different branch of his company, far away from all the memories and the people who had caused their pain. When he was granted the transfer, he and Tamia moved to Greenville City. There, Duke surprised Tamia with something big, a huge, beautiful mansion that looked like something out of a dream. The house was peaceful, surrounded by flowers and tall trees, with big windows that let in golden sunlight. It was private, quiet, and perfect. Tamia had once said this was her dream house, and now it was hers. Even better, the house had been sold at a special discount, like it was waiting just for them. For the first time in a long while, Tamia smiled from her heart. Maybe, just maybe, this new beginning could heal the broken pieces of their story. One sunny afternoon, about a month after they moved to Greenville, Tamia got a surprise visit from Kamara, her old friend who also worked as a manager at the book publishing company. They hugged and laughed, happy to see each other again. But Kamara's face soon turned serious. She told Tamia that their boss had sent her with a message, a warning. If Tamia didn't finish her book in 3 weeks, her contract would be canceled, and the big deal she signed would be given to another writer. Tamia's heart dropped. That book deal was her dream, her chance to get her voice back, and she wasn't ready to lose it. But deep down, she knew she was still stuck. The pain, the memories, they still held her back like heavy chains. Tamia begged Kamara with teary eyes, asking her to please talk to the boss. She said she just needed a little more time, maybe 6 weeks, and she promised she would deliver like she always did before. Kamara could see how much it meant to her, so she picked up the phone and called their boss right there in Tamia's kitchen. After a short talk, Kamara looked at her with a soft sigh and said, He agreed to give you just 1 month. That's all. Tamia felt the pressure grow heavy on her shoulders. 1 month to finish a book she couldn't even start for months. But she wiped her tears, stood tall, and told Kamara, "I will do it." She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she also knew she couldn't let her dreams slip away. Not again. The next morning, Tamia woke up with one goal in her heart, to finally make progress on her book. She made breakfast for Duke, packed his lunch, and kissed him goodbye like she always did. But today felt different. After he left, Tamia walked slowly into her study room for the very first time since they moved into the new house. The room was quiet, clean, and filled with sunlight, but there was something strange in the air, like a feeling she couldn't explain. Still, she didn't think much of it. She placed her laptop on the table, sat down, and lit one of the cigars from a pack beside her. Smoking helped her think, or at least it used to. She stared at the screen, fingers on the keyboard, but no words came. The story in her heart felt lost. She tried and tried, but nothing made sense. She couldn't even get past the first line. Hours passed. The room filled with smoke. She lay back in her chair, tired and upset, finishing the whole pack of cigars, but still, the page remained empty. That night, after dinner and their usual evening routine, Tamia sat quietly on the bed beside Duke. Her face looked tired, and her eyes were filled with worry. She finally opened up and told him how frustrated she was, that even after all the promises, she was still stuck. "I sat the whole day and couldn't write a single word," she whispered. "I feel like my mind is broken, like I'm not a writer anymore." She also told him that someone would soon come to check on her progress, but they would find nothing but an empty screen. Duke looked at her gently, took her hand, and said, "You're still the best writer I know. You just need to find your balance again. That light inside you, it's still there. We just need to help it shine." Tamia leaned her head on his shoulder, a tear falling from her eye, but deep inside, a tiny spark of hope began to flicker. A whole week had passed, and still, Tamia hadn't written a single word. Every day, she sat in her study with her laptop open, ready to write, but nothing ever came. The page stayed empty, just like her mind. The words that used to dance in her head had vanished, and the magic that once lived in her fingers was gone. Now, with just a few days left before Kamara would come to check on her progress, Tamia was drowning in stress. She felt like a failure. So today, she decided to stop trying. Instead of forcing herself to write, she chose to clean the house and relax her mind. Maybe, just maybe, it would help her figure out what was blocking her. She swept the floors, dusted the windows, and finally headed to the basement to look for her old books. Maybe some old stories could spark something inside her again. As soon as she stepped into the basement, the air changed. The room felt cold and strange, like someone else was there. She walked slowly to the storage shelves, her hand brushing over dusty boxes. But then bang! A sudden wind burst through the room like a wave, loud and wild. The basement door slammed shut behind her with a hard bang that made her jump. Tamia froze, her heart racing. There were no windows open, no fans running. So where did that wind come from? Nothing made sense. Her hands began to shake as she stared at the closed door, and the quiet room suddenly felt heavy, like it was watching her. Without waiting another second, she ran up the stairs, yanked the door open, and rushed out of the basement, her chest pounding. She stood in the hallway, confused and frightened, asking herself the same question over and over again. What just happened down there? Tamia went back to her study, still shaken by what had just happened in the basement. She sat on her chair, her laptop in front of her, but she couldn't focus. Her mind was busy trying to understand what that strange wind was, why the door slammed shut, and why the basement felt so cold and scary. As she sat there, the air in the study changed again. The same weird feeling returned, thick and heavy like something invisible had entered the room. Suddenly, the wind started again. Papers flew off the table, the curtains danced wildly, and a book fell from the shelf with a loud thud. Tamia jumped to her feet, her heart pounding like a drum. She couldn't take it anymore. Without thinking twice, she ran out of the study and headed straight to their bedroom. She sat on the edge of the bed, her hands shaking and her chest rising fast. "What is going on?" she whispered to herself. She couldn't tell Duke. He would just think she was tired or imagining things. She couldn't tell Kamara. Kamara would think the pressure was making her lose her mind. "Am I going nuts?" Tamia asked herself, hugging a pillow tightly. Her eyes were wide with fear, and her thoughts were spinning. Maybe all this was happening because she couldn't write. Maybe her mind was playing tricks on her. But what Tamia didn't know was that what was happening was real. It was something supernatural, something bigger than her fears, something that had a reason, and it had chosen her. 2 days had passed, and everything had been calm. No strange wind, no slamming doors, no weird energy. Tamia started to believe that maybe it was all in her head after all. That morning, she felt different, hopeful. She made herself a hot cup of coffee, grabbed her pack of cigars, and walked into her study with a strong feeling that today would be different. Today, I must write something, she whispered to herself. She lit a cigar, took a sip of her coffee, and opened her laptop. As the screen lit up, she leaned back, ready to finally pour her heart onto the page. But just as she began searching her mind for ideas, that strange wind returned. The curtains danced again, her papers shook, and the air grew thick. But this time, instead of running, she stayed. She wanted to face it. Her voice trembled as she spoke into the air. "What do you want? Who are you?" For a few seconds, there was nothing. Just silence. Then, out of nowhere, a calm woman's voice whispered, "I am here to help you, because I think you need my help." Tamia froze, her eyes wide. What kind of help are you talking about?" she asked, feeling like her heart might leap out of her chest. The voice answered, "I can help you with your book, if you let me." Tamia didn't know whether to scream or cry. Her mind said it was crazy, but deep down, something told her this wasn't a joke. Was this spirit real? Could she trust it? Or was she truly losing her mind? All she knew was that she was desperate, and this voice, this strange, ghostly voice, might be her only hope. Tamia sat there, thinking hard. Should I trust this voice? She asked herself. But she was running out of time. Kamara would be coming in just a few days, and she still had nothing written. She needed help, even if it came from something she didn't understand. So she took a deep breath and whispered, "Okay, help me." For a moment, there was silence. She looked around the room, waiting, but nothing happened. Then the voice came again, soft and strange, saying, "Figure it out." Tamia frowned, confused. "What? Didn't you just say you wanted to help me?" she asked, her voice getting louder. Still, there was no answer. Feeling frustrated, she shouted, "Use me." The moment the words left her mouth, everything changed. Her chair moved suddenly, pulling her closer to the laptop. Her eyes grew wide, her pupils darkened, and her fingers lifted like they had a mind of their own. Then, tap, 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 her hands began typing fast, so fast it didn't feel real. The words were coming out like a river, flowing freely. She didn't know what she was writing. She couldn't even feel her fingers anymore. It was like her mind had gone dark and something else had taken over. But on the screen, her book was finally coming to life. The story was growing, chapter after chapter, line after line, and Tamia was no longer stuck. But little did she know, every word she typed was not just from her. It was from something else. Something that had waited a long time for this moment. After a few chapters, the fast typing suddenly stopped. Tamia's hands froze on the keyboard, and her body leaned back slowly into the chair. Her eyes blinked like someone waking up from a deep sleep. She looked around the room, confused and a little dizzy. It felt like she had just come out of a dream. Her fingers felt sore, and her heart was racing. "What just happened?" she whispered. She looked at the laptop screen and gasped. There were pages and pages of words, chapters she didn't even remember writing. The story was rich, deep, and beautiful, and yet it didn't feel fully like her own. She stood up slowly, feeling weak but amazed. Whatever had taken over her was now gone. The room felt normal again, quiet and still. No wind, no strange energy, no voice. Just her, and the book that was somehow writing itself. Tamia sat on the floor, hugging her knees, trying to understand what was happening. She didn't know whether to be happy or scared. Yes, the story was finally coming together, but at what cost? And would it return? Even though Tamia still had some doubts about what had happened, deep down, she was happy. For the first time in a long while, her book was coming together, and it was beautiful. The next morning, she woke up smiling and full of energy. Her heart felt light. She went to the kitchen, played her favorite song, and started making breakfast while dancing around with joy. Duke walked in, surprised to see her glowing like that. "Someone is in a good mood today," he said with a big smile. "Yes, baby," she laughed. "I'm writing again. The words are finally flowing, and I can't wait for you to read my book once I'm done. It's a beautiful story full of lessons." Duke hugged her tightly. "I'm so proud of you, Tamia. I always knew you'd find your way back," he said, before heading off to work with a smile on his face. Not long after Duke left, Kamara arrived to check on Tamia and see how the book was coming along. They sat in the living room, laughing and catching up over some juice. Then Tamia went to her study, picked up her laptop, and brought it to Kamara. "Here, just read the first few chapters and tell me what you think," she said nervously. Kamara read in silence, her eyes moving quickly across the screen. When she finally looked up, she was smiling. "Tamia, this is so good," she said. "You should keep going with this storyline. It's impressive, relatable, and really attention-grabbing. People will love it." Tamia's heart filled with joy. "Ooh, thank you so much, Kamara," she said, feeling proud and hopeful again. But deep inside, she still wondered, how was she able to write it so perfectly? This new hope gave Tamia the strength to keep going. Every day, she went to the study room, sat on her chair, and let the spirit take over. She would pass out, and when she woke up, more pages were done. The story kept getting better, and everyone at the publishing company was amazed by her work. Her words were powerful, and the book was full of lessons that touched people's hearts. Tamia had decided to turn the story into a series, and after 1 month, she had completed the first part. She felt proud. She handed it in for publishing, her heart full of joy and a little fear. What if they don't like it? She thought. But deep down, she knew this book was special. On the day of the release, something magical happened. The book sold out. People everywhere were buying it, reading it, and talking about it. Tamia was celebrated as one of the best writers once more. She was called for interviews, her face appeared on TV, and her photo was put on big billboards in different cities. Everyone was talking about Tamia Johnson's big comeback. She felt good again, truly good. For the first time in a long time, she smiled without forcing it. She was not only famous again, but she was also making a lot of money. Her name was known all over the world, and she felt like her dreams were alive again. But still, somewhere in her heart, she wondered who really wrote that book. Tamia's life was finally back on track. She was happy, thriving, and had become the woman she always dreamed of being. She was proud of herself, even though deep down she knew the words weren't fully hers. But it felt worth the risk. The book had changed her life. Now, 2 months had passed since the release of Caged, and she felt it was time to start writing the next part. That morning, she woke up full of energy and excitement. But one question kept spinning in her mind. Who is the spirit helping me? She had never seen her face. She had never heard her name. All she knew was that she had written a powerful story about a woman named Georgette. As Tamia walked into the bathroom to freshen up, something strange happened. When she looked into the mirror, she froze. There, staring back at her, wasn't just her reflection, but another woman. A beautiful, glowing woman with deep eyes full of pain and wisdom. Tamia's heart skipped a beat. Who are you?" she whispered. The woman in the mirror didn't speak, but Tamia already knew. It was her, Georgette, the same woman from the story. The same voice that had been guiding her all along. Tamia stepped back slowly, her hands shaking. The book was about her, and she had been here this whole time. "Don't be scared, we've been friends for a while now. And today, you finally get to see me," Georgette said with a soft, calming voice. Tamia stared in shock, her heart racing. "But why me? Why this house?" she asked, hoping for an answer. But Georgette didn't say a word. She just gave Tamia a warm smile, then slowly faded away from the mirror, leaving nothing behind but silence and questions. Tamia stood there for a moment, confused and unsure. She wanted answers, but none came. After calming herself, she finished getting ready and went to the study room. She didn't know if Georgette would help her again, but she was ready to try. Tamia sat in her chair and opened her laptop. Within minutes, her eyes darkened, her pupils widened, and her hands began to move quickly across the keyboard. It was happening again. The words were flowing like magic. Her second book was coming to life, each page stronger than the last. Day after day, the house was peaceful, full of joy and creativity. Duke noticed her happiness and was proud of how far she'd come. Kamara came to visit again, curious to see how the new book was going. She read through a few pages and looked up, amazed. "Tamia, this is even better than the first one," she said with a big smile. Tamia smiled too, thankful for the gift, but still wondering who Georgette really was and what she truly wanted. Tamia kept writing because she had no choice. The book had to be finished. But something was changing. The story started to twist in a way she didn't like. Georgette, the spirit helping her, began pushing the book toward a sad ending. An ending where the main character, who was also named Georgette, takes her own life. Tamia didn't like this at all. She wanted the story to end with hope, with the main character breaking free and finding peace. Every time Tamia deleted the dark parts and tried to rewrite the ending her way, her hands would go back to typing the sad version. It made her feel stuck again, like she was fighting a shadow she couldn't control. So she called Kamara and asked to meet up for coffee, hoping for some advice. At the cafe, Tamia told Kamara everything. Well, almost everything. Every time I try to write, my mind keeps pushing the story toward death. And I don't want that. I want the character to win, not die. If she dies, it ruins the whole meaning of the book, Tamia said, looking stressed. Absolutely. Kamara agreed. If the main character dies, the whole message gets lost. People want hope, not sadness. Do whatever it takes to fix it. Or maybe I should come over and support you while you write. Maybe you're just tired. Before she could finish, Tamia suddenly shouted, "No." Kamara froze, shocked by her reaction. I just mean, I'll figure it out, Tamia added quickly, her voice shaky. I don't want to trouble you. Kamara smiled slowly, but now her mind was full of questions. That reaction wasn't normal. What was Tamia hiding? After the coffee date with Kamara, Tamia went back home feeling lost. She sat on her bed, thinking about her life. She had everything she once dreamed of: money, fame, her dream car, and a beautiful home. Everyone knew her name again. But deep down, she was scared. One wrong move, and everything could disappear. She didn't want to go back to being forgotten. So the next morning, Tamia made a bold decision. She would write the book her way. She believed in her story and wanted the ending to bring hope, not pain. She walked into the study, took a deep breath, and opened her laptop. She didn't ask Georgette for help this time. She just started typing, determined to be in control. But something strange happened. Every time she typed a sentence, the words would disappear before she could finish. It was like the laptop was fighting her. For hours, she battled the screen, trying again and again, but nothing would stay. She took a short break, and in that moment, her hands started moving again, but not by her own will. Georgette had returned. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, typing quickly. When Tamia snapped out of it and read the part, it was the same sad direction again. She got angry and deleted everything Georgette wrote. That made the spirit furious. The wind stopped, the air went still, and Georgette vanished. Days passed, and Tamia didn't feel her presence anymore. The room was quiet, but it wasn't peaceful. It felt like the calm before a storm. Since that day, Tamia hadn't written even a single page, and the deadline was getting closer and closer. The pressure started to crush her again. She felt trapped. So she came up with a risky idea, to call Georgette and try to make a deal with her. She didn't know what danger might come from it, but she was desperate. Tamia stood in front of the mirror and called out for Georgette. Suddenly, Georgette's face appeared in the mirror, looking calm but powerful. Can we just make an agreement? Tamia said nervously. You help me finish the book the way I want it, and I will do something for you in return. Georgette looked at her with a sly smile and asked, Are you sure? Tamia, feeling the heavy weight of failure over her, quickly said, Yes, I'm sure. Georgette's smile grew wider. Okay then, she said. But in return, I will be taking over your body sometimes, just to experience the real world again. Tamia's heart skipped a beat. She knew this was dangerous. She hesitated for a moment, but her dreams and fear of losing everything pushed her to agree. Fine, she said. She didn't stop to think about what she was truly giving away. All she cared about was finishing that book, seeing her face on billboards again, and feeling powerful. Tamia had made a deal, but deep inside, something didn't feel right. She had no idea just how much her life was about to change. At first, everything seemed to be going well. Tamia's book was moving fast, her fame was growing even more, and life felt like a dream again. But soon, things started to change. Georgette began to overstay when she took over Tamia's body. She wasn't just helping with the book anymore. She was living Tamia's life. Georgette even started spending time with Tamia's husband at night, acting like his real wife. In the mornings, when Tamia came back to her own body, her husband would look at her strangely. One morning at breakfast, he finally spoke up. Are you okay? He asked gently. I've been noticing different sides of you lately. Last night, for example, you were very different. Not that I didn't like it, but I'm curious. Tamia's heart dropped, but she quickly smiled and acted normal. I'm just trying to live more, honey, she said sweetly. We deserve that. I'm at a point in my life where I feel peace and just want to be happy and enjoy myself. But deep inside, Tamia was full of fear and anger. She realized that every time Georgette took over, she lost herself a little more. Georgette was doing crazy things that Tamia would never do if she were in control. Knowing that Georgette was also sharing nights with her husband without her permission made her feel sick. This wasn't what Tamia had agreed to. Georgette was crossing the line. She wasn't just helping with the book anymore. She was stealing Tamia's life, little by little. Tamia knew she had to do something before she lost everything she had worked so hard for. But what could she do now? She was stuck in a deal that she couldn't easily break. After Duke left for work, Tamia marched straight to the bathroom mirror. She stood there, facing Georgette. "You are taking my life from me," Tamia shouted. "You are crossing boundaries. My man was off limits, and we agreed on that. I don't like it." Her face was red with anger. Georgette looked calm in the mirror and said, "Okay, I get it. It won't happen again." But Tamia wasn't ready to trust her. "You better behave, or this whole deal will be over," she warned. Georgette just smiled softly and disappeared from the mirror. But what Tamia didn't know was that Georgette had her own secret plans. She wasn't going to stop living through Tamia. In fact, she was getting bolder with every passing day. Life went on, and Tamia tried to act like everything was normal. One day, she asked her driver to take her to the mall for some shopping. They had fun chatting and laughing in the car. But on their way back, everything changed. Without warning, Georgette took over Tamia's body and flirted with the driver, even seducing him. When Tamia woke up, she found herself in the back seat of the car, clothes messy and heart racing. She was so ashamed and furious. She rushed into the house, locked the door, and ran to clean herself up. Tears burned her eyes. She finally realized that Georgette was not just a little problem anymore. She was destroying her life, piece by piece. Tamia knew no one else would believe her crazy story. She had to find a way to get rid of Georgette before it was too late. After freshening up, Tamia stood in front of the bathroom mirror, her heart pounding with anger. "We had an agreement," she shouted at Georgette. "You must remember, it's my body you are using. Whatever you do, it looks like I am doing it too." Her voice cracked with pain. "You made me sleep with my driver. How do you think that makes me feel? You disrespected me. You ruined my job relationship, and now I have to fire him. You made me cheat on my husband." Tamia's hands were shaking as she spoke. "I need you to leave. I never want to see you again. First, you messed with my husband, now this. You are trying so hard to destroy my marriage, and I won't allow it." Her voice rose louder. "Leave, Georgette. You are miserable, lonely, and don't know how to respect others. Get out of my life." Tamia screamed with all the anger she had held inside. Georgette stared at Tamia from the mirror, her face dark and hurt. She couldn't believe how Tamia was talking to her after everything she had done to help her. Georgette had helped her finish the book, helped her become rich and famous again. But now, Tamia was acting like none of it mattered. Without saying a word, Georgette disappeared from the mirror. But this time, she wasn't sad. She was angry. Very angry. What Tamia didn't know was that getting rid of a spirit like Georgette wasn't that easy. She had just made a very big mistake by shouting at her like that. And now, something dark was coming. Something Tamia wasn't ready for. A few years ago, Georgette was married to one of the richest men in Greenville. At first, he was the sweetest man she had ever met. Their life felt like a fairy tale. But as time went by, everything changed. Her husband became controlling, mean, and cruel. He treated Georgette and their children like they were servants. Every day, he would sit at the big dining table and eat first, while making them stand and watch. After he was full, he would give them tiny leftovers. Sometimes he even locked them in the basement, only letting them out when he was home. Georgette felt trapped, scared, and hopeless. One dark day, when she couldn't take it anymore, she poisoned herself and her children. They all died in that very house. Everyone in Greenville heard about the horrible story, and the house became known as a cursed place filled with sadness and fear. That's why no one wanted to buy or even rent the house. People said an evil spirit lived there, and they stayed far away from it. When Duke, Tamia's husband, found out the house was for sale, he couldn't believe how cheap it was. The owner was so desperate to get rid of it that he agreed to sell it for almost nothing. Duke thought he had found a once-in-a-lifetime deal and didn't think twice about it. He didn't believe in ghosts or curses, so he bought the house quickly. But what he didn't know was that the house carried a deep sadness. and a spirit that wasn't ready to leave. Back in the present, things were getting worse for Tamia. Georgette was no longer just taking over her body for fun. Now she was trying to hurt Tamia. Every time Tamia tried to use the bathtub, she would black out and almost drown. When she tried to cook, she would almost burn herself without even realizing it. It felt like no matter what she did, she was always in danger. Tamia was scared and tired. She felt trapped in her own body, and every day became harder to survive. Soon, the fear turned into sadness. Tamia started to lose hope and fell into a deep depression. She didn't even feel safe in her own home anymore. She knew if she kept quiet, she wouldn't make it much longer. Something had to change. She needed help, real help. So, with a heavy heart, Tamia decided to talk to someone she trusted. She knew it was the only way to save herself before it was too late. Tamia sat on the couch, hugging her knees and crying. Her heart was heavy and her mind was a mess. She kept thinking, who would believe me? The story sounded crazy even to her. It felt like a wild fantasy, something no normal person would understand. She didn't know if she should ask for help or try to fix it herself. Meanwhile, Kamara had been trying to call and text, but Tamia never answered. Worried, Kamara decided to visit her. When she arrived and saw Tamia crying like a lost child, she rushed to sit beside her. Hey, what's wrong? Kamara asked, wrapping her arms around her friend. Between sobs, Tamia told Kamara everything, about Georgette, the spirit, the strange writing, the danger she was now in. She explained how Georgette had helped her at first, but now wanted to hurt her, just like she had hurt her own family years ago. Kamara listened with wide eyes, shocked by every word. Why would you even agree to something so dangerous? Kamara asked, almost in tears herself. I was vulnerable. I didn't know what else to do, Tamia whispered. Kamara pulled her into a tight hug. It's okay. I'm here now. We'll find a way to fix this. You're not alone, she said. Deep inside, both girls knew it was not going to be easy, but they had no choice. Tamia's life depended on it. A few days later, Duke sat down with Tamia. He could see how much she was struggling, and he wanted to understand what was going on. With tears in her eyes, Tamia told him everything, about Georgette, the spirit, the writing, and the danger she was now in. Duke hugged her and tried to comfort her, but deep inside, he was very worried. He didn't really believe the story. He thought Tamia might be losing her mind and needed serious help. Even though he didn't say it out loud right away, he was already thinking about getting her into a hospital where she could heal. For now, he just said softly, "We'll get you help, okay?" hoping not to scare her even more. Later, Duke brought up the idea of taking Tamia to the hospital, but Tamia got very upset. "I am not mad," she shouted, tears running down her face. They ended up having a big fight, and after that, they stopped talking for a few days. During this time, Duke got an important business offer that needed him to travel for a week and some days. He knew he couldn't leave Tamia alone like this, but he also didn't want to force her into a hospital yet. So, he called Kamara and asked her to stay with Tamia while he was gone. Duke also secretly hoped Kamara would help convince Tamia to agree to treatment by the time he returned. Things were messy, and the clock was ticking fast. After Duke left for his business trip, Kamara moved into the house to take care of Tamia. A few days later, something strange happened. A powerful man of God, who had come to Greenville to spread the word, felt a strong pull toward Tamia's house. He couldn't explain it, but something deep inside told him he had to go there. He stood in front of the tall gates, staring at the big, beautiful house. He rang the bell and waited. After a few seconds, Kamara opened the gate. The moment she saw him standing there with his Bible and a small bottle of anointing oil, her heart skipped. She knew God had sent him for a reason, especially during this dark time. Without even asking many questions, she quickly let him inside. As the man of God stepped onto the compound, he suddenly closed his eyes and got a strong vision. He could see flashes of everything happening in the house. The spirit of Georgette, the pain Tamia was carrying, and all the darkness trying to take over. "There is great evil here," he said with a heavy voice. Kamara, who had been trying to stay strong for Tamia, almost cried with relief. Finally, someone who truly understood was here. She held his hand tightly and led him inside, ready to fight for her friend's life. But deep down, she knew this would not be an easy battle. The man of God looked at Kamara and asked her to bring a bowl of water. Kamara rushed to the kitchen, filled a bowl with clean water, and handed it to him. He poured a little of the anointing oil into the water and prayed over it, asking God for protection and strength. Then he told Kamara to call Tamia. When Tamia came, looking tired and scared, the man of God spoke kindly but firmly. "This house should have been cleansed before you moved in," he said. "There are things here that do not belong with the living." Holding the bowl carefully, he walked around the compound, sprinkling the water everywhere while praying loudly. Kamara and Tamia followed him closely, feeling both scared and hopeful at the same time. After he finished outside, they all went back into the house. The man of God didn't waste any time. He started praying even harder, walking through every room, sprinkling the water, and commanding the evil to leave. When he got to Tamia, he stood in front of her and shouted, "The dead and the living have no connection. Georgette, you must leave." He sprinkled more anointing oil on Tamia's head and shoulders. Tamia started shaking and crying as the battle grew stronger. Kamara held her hand tightly, praying quietly. They all knew this was not just a fight for Tamia's peace, but for her life. Suddenly, a bright light shone down from the roof, filling the whole room with a warm, powerful feeling. Tamia felt something strong and gentle, like the Holy Spirit, come over her. It was like she was floating in the air, light as a feather. At the same time, Georgette's spirit was forced out of her body and began fighting back. Tamia's mouth opened wide, and she started speaking in tongues without even trying. Pastor Sammy and Kamara kept praying louder and louder in the background. Georgette's spirit, feeling weak, tried to be sneaky. She spoke sweetly. "Hey, don't get rid of us. Remember all the great things we did together. You can't survive without me. There is no you without me." For a moment, Tamia felt unsure. She thought about the fame, the money, and the success. But then she remembered all the pain, the danger, and the evil things Georgette had brought into her life. With tears running down her cheeks, she stood strong and shouted, "I rebuke you in the mighty name of Jesus. You don't get to own me. The Lord is my Savior and my salvation. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For the Lord is with me. His rod and his staff comfort me." Her voice grew stronger as she spoke. "I detach myself from the spirit of the dead in Jesus' mighty name," she cried out, facing Georgette's spirit with all the strength she had left. At this point, Georgette's spirit was feeling weak and defeated. Suddenly, Tamia felt a strong pull deep inside her, and her tongues grew louder and louder. She didn't fully understand everything that was happening, but she believed with all her heart that the Holy Spirit had taken over her body. In just a few moments, there was a loud groan from Georgette's spirit, a painful sound that shook the room. Then, with a sharp cry, the spirit vanished into thin air. It couldn't handle the power of God anymore. It was gone, nowhere to be seen. Kamara, Pastor Sammy, and Tamia all fell to their knees and thanked God for his love and protection. Tamia couldn't stop smiling through her tears. For the first time in a long time, she felt free. Her heart was full of peace, and she knew deep inside that her life could finally go back to normal again. She hugged Kamara tightly and said, "Thank you," over and over again. Pastor Sammy smiled and reminded her, "God is always greater than any darkness." A month later, Tamia sat in her study, a big smile on her face. Her life was back on track, and her marriage with Duke was better than ever. She finally felt happy and free again. Sitting at her desk with her laptop open, she started writing a new book, this time about her own life and everything she had been through. The words flowed out so easily, like a river running fast and strong. Every page was full of truth, pain, strength, and hope. For the first time in a long time, Tamia didn't need any spirit's help. She had her own voice, and it was powerful. She knew deep down that this book was going to be even bigger and better than anything she had ever written before. The moral of Tamia's story is that sometimes, chasing success the wrong way can cost you more than you ever imagined. It teaches us that real strength comes from believing in ourselves, even when things get hard, and not taking shortcuts that could destroy our lives. Tamia's journey shows that patience, faith, and doing things the right way may take longer, but in the end, they bring true peace, happiness, and success that no one can take away. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this story. Kindly subscribe, like, comment, and share my video with your loved ones. Turn on your notification bell to always be informed whenever I post another interesting video like this one. Until next time, take care.